No matter the time, morning, afternoon, or evening, any time is a good time to have coffee with the mayor. So let's join Mayor Steve Widmeyer as he goes in search of the people, places, and events, both current and historic, that make our community unique.
Well, welcome to another episode of Coffee with the Mayor. I'm Steve Widmeyer, and I'm here as usual with my co-host Woody McEvers. And we have a great and interesting, informative show today. We're going to talk about streets. And with us we have Tim Martin, our street superintendent, and Chris Bosley, who's our city engineer. And we were just talking about longevity, and this is going to be Tim's 30th year with the city of Coeur d'Alene, long time. And Chris is fairly new to our organization. Chris has been here for 6 months, and Tim is teaching him the ropes of the city. So welcome to both of you. And we have a lot of information that we're going to gather from you on our streets and our streets maintenance program. And Wood, I'll turn it over to you to get going.
So it's one of me and Steve, we talk about you guys all the time because we ride the streets and it's one of the main things we hear about. So explain to us what you guys do and what kind of the big picture, if you can, about streets in the city of Coeur d'Alene.
The streets and engineering department, we manage the overlays, the big projects around town, and of course the street maintenance itself. Maintenance such as asphalt patching, crack sealing, painting. You know, you're one council member that always says, you know, streets look great when the paint goes down. It just changes. You know, and of course we do all the permanent pavement markings. I mean, the crosswalks and the arrows, and people, it looks easy, but there's over 600 permanent pavement markings in this town, so it's quite an effort to get all this done.
So Tim, maybe talk about, and this is one of my pet peeves, but we would certainly love for the striping on the streets to stay longer, but the products have changed, haven't they, over the last few years, and because the products have changed, and therefore environmental safety rules, but the product that you use on painting the streets is different today than it was a few years back.
It's not, you know, 6-7 years ago when we were using oil-based paints. And, you know, because of environmental issues, everybody moved over to water-based, and it just does not last as long. And of course, a winter like we had this year and all the grit, sand out on the road, it just chews that paint up. But we're looking at processes to make it better. We're actually looking at this thermoplastic. It's a heat down kind of tape, and have it inlaid, you know, especially one area is across the bridge. Many people notice that at Appleway and Ramsey, you know, as you cross over into the Ironwood area, that's a real bad area every year gets, because the road just kind of turns a little. So we're looking for improvements to do things better, quicker, not more labor intensive, but just smarter.
So if we could invent a street paint that lasted 2 or 3 years, we could make a lot of money on that.
You save a lot too,
You'd
right?
have something there.
Right. So obviously you have to prioritize street projects, right? You know, there are some areas that you have to get to sooner than others. So maybe talk about how you prioritize, and everyone, the citizens prioritize street projects by what's in front of them, right? Their street is always a priority to them, but you have all of these several hundred miles of streets, and you have to, in your program, prioritize those. So maybe talk a little bit about how you do that.
We'll talk a little bit about projects later and how we prioritize projects and things like that, but from a maintenance standpoint, you know, we look the worst of the worst. I mean, we're going to go out as potholes, you know. Potholes were a big issue this winter. It was very tough, and all this rain, it was hard to keep them full. So as we prioritize going into summer asphalt season, we're going to go take care of those potholes first. And then we're going to look at the arterials. That's where most of the people are driving. We'll look at all the special events, make sure that we're staying out of their way, you know, as the events happen.
No matter the
downtown.
time.
And we're going to look at location. You know, where is the overlay going in the chip seal, which we'll talk about later. And then we look at next year's overlay and chip seal. Where are they going to be? So we can stay ahead of it with the crack seal process of sealing our roads.
It's a big job. I mean, we talked a lot this winter. I was always calling him when I saw something good. And then when I saw something bad, I'd give him a heads up. But I was tripping kind of on 4th Street. I had never seen 4th Street come apart like that. And you explained to me some of the history. Can you just kind of briefly talk about why is 4th Street so special?
4th is one that it's one of the oldest streets still in town that hasn't been reconstructed. There's concrete under there, and if you can envision it as you're driving it, about 8-10 feet out from the curb, there's all this crack seal. That's where the edge of the concrete is. So as it expands and contracts, and that's where a lot of our process fell apart, is it just delaminated between that concrete surface and the asphalt. And it was on our radar just like everybody's. But again, you know, all that rain, we just could not get anything to stay in there till we had a few dry days, and we got a temporary patch in there at this time, and then we'll go in there this spring for maintenance and clean it up.
Has this weather, even in April, and this has been a we're coming off a very wet February, a very wet March, and now again a very wet April. Has this delayed you getting, I know your guys are always out there doing something, but has that put you a little bit behind schedule on doing some things that you wanted to get to earlier in the spring?
I think so. I think a little bit. I mean, we'd like to see the temperatures warmer, definitely, for paint. But we'd be painting by now if we had drier weather and a little warmer temps. And of course, it's slowed us down on our maintenance. We've been out on Celtis Way to get it prepped for the big project, but we get one sunny day a week, it seems like, this year, and it's been a challenge. But it's given us a chance to go in and do alley maintenance, you know, things that we dropped behind on, and some of the other processes, clean and catch basins, and of course the popular spring cleanups, getting the 3 sweepers out there, getting the sand picked up and ready to go.
I was going to say, I was driving in this morning and I almost texted you and said, yeah, the curbs, the streets are looking beautiful because the sweepers have been through. It makes such a big difference, like right now, even without paint, just sweeping the streets.
For the last month, we've really been working on these arterials because that's where we want to get the paint down. And so we want to get those clean and ready to go. And now just the last week and a half, we've started moving into the residentials. And we've actually created a map that people can get on the website and or the social media and follow where we're going to be, where we're headed, and where we'll be next.
Yeah, I watched that. That's pretty neat.
Yeah. So maybe, Tim, for us, people that don't totally understand the street maintenance and the difference between the two, talk about there's a difference between street maintenance and street overlay. And maybe explain to us what that difference is.
See, I look at overlay as global. I mean, it's going to rate every street, and they're looking at the whole town globally, where the maintenance side of things, we're working on the worst of the worst. I mean, you've got 550 lane miles or so of streets in town, and you have 100 days of construction time to get out there and do what we want. But for reasons such as mobility and to be able to do any things, you try to keep your overlay system within a certain area of town and where it's the worst. You know, especially the chip seal program. Instead of spending money moving them from one end of town to the other, you stay in a subdivision and or a section and do it. So overlay chip seal's more global. You're looking at the whole town. Maintenance is more worst of the worst, and where do we need to be to stay ahead of the game.
I know you, in your department, and bringing Chris in, is you do the engineering, and I never thought much about engineering other than this light has gone crazy. You know, Harrison and Government Way has this glitch in it, and I remember calling you every time I stood through 3 lights and go, I better tell them the glitch is happening again. And you would call and you'd come down, and it's like, it's fixed. It takes a while. And so traffic lights fascinate me because I drive the town every day. Everything's different. There's old and there's new. Can you explain a little of that difference and where are you headed to with traffic lights? I know. I love this one.
I would love to say that we're maintaining our lights as well as we can. It's very, very costly. I mean, just cameras for an intersection is $15,000. And you know, there's cameras, there's loops, and there's what they call receiver pucks. Just to do an intersection like Lakewood, you have to put 22 pucks in the ground. And they've got a lifespan of 5 to 7 years, so do you replace them one by one, or do you go in and replace them all? Or it's a fascinating world. We're staying ahead, but there's lots of cool stuff out there that we could be doing different, from traffic counts to pedestrian counts to bicycle counts, all kinds of different things, you know, and we're going to get there, council member, but it's going to take time.
I just remember you talking about some of the places the lights are so old, and 23rd and
Oh, yeah.
Sherman, right? You say that's really an old light, and yet I've never seen that light malfunction. It always seems to be pretty efficient with the flow when I go through there. So old doesn't necessarily mean bad. Is it running out? You can't get parts or something? Is that what old is?
You can't upgrade. As parts
Okay.
come out of the system, you can't get parts for it. The cabinet is just one piece of it, but what goes in that cabinet is a whole different animal. I mean, you got 6 places in old cabinets, you know. Now new cabinets got 20 places, you know, to move stuff in and detection and things like that. But we're getting there.
So Chris,
Yes.
you've been with the city for 6 months now, and what we've done is organizationally we moved engineering in with streets, and maybe talk a little bit about your role in the streets program. I think you're probably more into construction of roads and working with designers and those kind of things. So you're kind of the road building kind of guy. And so maybe talk about your role and the things you've worked on in the city of Coeur d'Alene so far and what we've got going in the future.
Sure. Most of what I deal with are the large capital improvement projects like Celtice Way, Government Way, Ironwood, and 95 projects and things like that. But I also work with stormwater projects, and I'm involved with the overlay and chip seal projects. And then, of course, things come to me on a daily basis that are often quite new and coming from different angles, from planning or from wherever. Public requests, people have different requests of the city to accommodate different things, and it's something that I need to take a look at on a day-to-day basis.
Mm-hmm. You know, and Chris, I know that you are, I could say that you are the most ardent bike rider of City of Coeur d'Alene employees. Maybe you get the award for the whole city, but I know you're in the top 10 for the whole city. Talk about, because I know you've worked with the city, you were the chairman of the Ped Bike Committee, and you've worked a lot on the transportation issues of bicycles. on our streets, and I know you're still involved in some of that. And maybe just talk a bit about, you know, what we've accomplished in bicycling in Coeur d'Alene, and where do you see the future of that going to? Because I know that's a big issue for a lot of people.
Well, one of the biggest things that I've been focusing on recently is connectivity of our network. We've got bike lanes on streets all over the city, which is great to get people from point A to point B, but in a lot of places we have a gap in that network. And so my recent focus has been looking at those gaps and trying to close them. And with the overlay project, we're given a clean slate as far as what the stripes on the road look like, and we're free to put the stripes back in the way we want. Other ones aren't so easy to accommodate because we'd have to remove stripes and they're not so easy. So it's carefully looking at each of those areas and figuring out how we can make those connections where they're most needed.
Maybe let's just touch a little bit on Celtice Way, because that's one of the major projects we've got going right now. But talk about the importance of Celtice Way to our city, but also talk about the bicycle and pedestrian paths that we're building on there. Because I think they're critical to our community to have those paths on our roadways.
Right. Celtice Way is important for the economic potential that it's got, because that corridor has not seen a whole lot of growth recently, or for quite some time, and it's a great connection to Post Falls, and it's close to the river, so it's got a lot of potential there, and hopefully this economic revitalization is going to spur some more development in that area. And along with that, we're going to be improving the ride quality, obviously, with new pavement out there, but we'll be providing bicyclists a place to ride with the buffered bike lanes we're putting out there. And then there'll be shared use paths on both sides of it, going all the way from Hutter to Northwest Boulevard. So it'll really improve the connectivity for pedestrians and bicyclists out there.
And then one final point on Celtice, and you're going to talk about this a lot in the next year or so, roundabouts. So we'll talk about roundabouts. And I think that we've had a lot of success with roundabouts, I think, in Coeur d'Alene. This is going to be something new, because I don't know that we've ever had a 2-lane roundabout in Coeur d'Alene. That's a new one. So maybe talk just a little bit about the roundabouts that are going in on Celtice.
Yeah, these will be the first 2 double-lane roundabouts that we have in Coeur d'Alene. So we're looking at doing some education to the public to describe to them how to handle driving through a roundabout. It's going to be a lot simpler than people may anticipate. If you want to turn left, you're in the left lane. If you want to turn right, you're in the right lane. If you're in either lane, you can go straight through, traveling east-west on Celtice. But originally, when this project was conceived, signalized intersections were anticipated for both Grand Mill Lane and at Atlas Road. But as we started to dig deeper into the project and kind of look at how much space was available there, because roundabouts generally take a lot of space right-of-way, but we have a lot of right-of-way out there. So we looked at the concept of putting a roundabout at Atlas, and in a public meeting, we unveiled this concept to the public, saying, we're looking at putting a roundabout at this intersection. And we are really expecting some pushback because we don't have any double-lane roundabouts, and we don't have a plethora of roundabouts. We have a few of them, but we expected to get some sort of pushback. And instead, people said, well, we want a roundabout at Grand Mill Lane as well, which really surprised us. So we looked at how traffic could be accommodated, look at the numbers, and whether or not we could accommodate trucks through both of those. And turns out that they were an affordable alternative to putting in a signalized intersection with a lot lower maintenance cost in the future, because as we just discussed, signals have their own issues. So we're looking forward to putting these both into use.
I think that people are very conscious of their time, even a short period of time. And the time that they have to stay still at a stoplight, they'd rather be moving, right? So I think that's probably the wave of the future in some areas is more of these roundabouts.
I think they're cool. you know, and I'm the kind of guy in a single roundabout, I put my blinker on so the guy that's coming can see which way I'm going, right? So these doubles should be pretty cool once people learn to use them. And again, the savings are, you're all gun-ho. They're easy to plow, I mean, a little landscaping, make it look cool, right? But no, I'm excited about all that. A lot of good projects coming. You talk a little about the Government Way projects coming up. Yeah. What's the plan on that one?
Well, that project is supposed to start in mid-June, and that will go from Hanley Avenue up to Prairie Avenue. And it will match what the section is from Dalton to Hanley with that newer 5-lane section that's been put in there. It will be very similar to that. It'll have buffered bike lanes on each side as well as sidewalks through that corridor. That is being administrated by the local Highway Technical Assistance Council, and they will be choosing a contractor and consultant to kind of run that project starting mid-June, and hopefully it will be done by late fall this year.
This may be, and Tim, you've been around here for 30 years, this may be the busiest construction year as far as road construction in Coeur d'Alene, so we're going to have to ask our residents to be a little patient. But again, we've got another project going at 95 in Ironwood, right near the hospital. So maybe touch just a little bit on what we have going there.
Yeah, we've got the Ironwood 95 project. They'll be adding right turn lanes on Ironwood, and then improving that signal at that location. But along with that, there will be a new signal put in at Emma and 95. And aside from those two projects, so those are coupled together through the Idaho Transportation Department, and those will make great improvements in that area. There will also be some driveway approaches that will be closed in that corridor to stop the left turns where they shouldn't be happening. But along with that, we have a separate project going on where Medina, which now comes up from Emma and comes into parking lots in the medical corridor there, it will punch through to Ironwood and have a signalized intersection there. So with those 3 signalized intersections, we should see a great improvement in the traffic congestion that occurs on that corridor there.
You know, and with growth comes challenges, and we've seen the growth of Kootenai Health. We've seen the number of employees that are there, all of that increased traffic. And so I think it's great that you guys have identified the problems there, the issues. You're working with the Idaho Transportation Department, and we're going to make it better, which is a good thing.
Yeah, what was it? Maybe a year and a half ago, Kootenai Health and JUB Engineering came to council and provided you some insight on that master transportation plan. And yeah, there's some exciting things going to happen in that corridor, you know, in the next 10 years or so.
When I think of that intersection, living close by there was the left turn blinking yellow arrow. That was the first place I think I remember ever seeing it, and it was like, it was revolutionary, you know. It was just like, well, this is cool. I can turn left on a red light from the, you know, it really opened up. And then I've seen you use that in some other places. Mm-hmm. And then I found out how much it costs, and then I stopped begging for more. It amazes me what something that seems so simple, a blinking yellow light, should cost so much money. But like you say, it's so much deeper than just what I see. It's not just the light.
Well, and that's where we talked about 23rd and Sherman. That cabinet system can't support that blinking yellow. That's why it's very similar to 7th and Sherman. I think that one's been here since wagons moved through town.
You know, and we talked about this when we had our police show, is that we are a community where we have 48,000 residents, but our streets and our roads have to be able to accommodate much, much more traffic counts than that, because we are so seasonal. So maybe just in the last minute, we've got one more minute to go, but I know you guys have a long-range plan, a 5-year plan, and I know it's tough to recap a 5-year plan in 1 year, but just talk about, just in general, how you put that plan together. Because I know you guys don't just think of this year, you think out for a couple of years.
Yeah, I think as caretakers of the dollars, we need to work smart, we need to work efficient, and that helps us put together an overlay plan or any kind of plan that we put together, and then we'll partner with water utility and wastewater, even Avista. We'll get them involved. Is here's where we want to go with our overlay projects. Do you have any work to do in the road prior to us doing that? And it helps, council member, you know, all of a sudden we're putting brand new pavement in front of your house. Next year, here comes the water boys tearing it up. You know, that's what we don't want happening. And that's why we work very diligently to put together a plan and follow that plan, you know. And as roads, you know, need more attention, we're going to give the utilities and Avista gas lines, you know, wanting to put gas in. You know, give them enough time to do the work they need to do, and then we can get in there and do the job we need to do.
Well, I know the job that you two gentlemen do, and your crew. I know you're the leader of how many crew members you have in your staff?
There's 32, 3.
Yeah, and they do a big job, and we're most appreciative. And I know people concentrate occasionally on the pothole, and they don't concentrate when they've got a smooth road. But we've got some great roads, and I just want to thank you, gentlemen, for the job that you do. And you're going to have a busy 2017, definitely. But I want to thank you very much for the job that you do. Thank you, Chris. And thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time at Coffee with the Mayor.
We hope you've enjoyed this edition of Coffee with the Mayor. Plan to join us for future programs where Mayor Steve Widmeyer takes a break and sits down to discuss issues of community interest. We would like to take this chance to thank the following sponsors for their support: Rustler's Roost and Time Warner Cable. So brew a pot of your favorite blend and sit down with us next time when we once again have Coffee with the Mayor.